Okay.
Damn.
That's all right.
All right. We are live now. We are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I am Drew, and this is Drew and Dragons. Tonight, we are going to do a deep dive into supernatural gifts. This ability granted by the gods when you create a player character in Theros. Tonight, I'm joined by my good friend and player at one of my tables, Zane. Zane, welcome. How are you, man?
Hello, everybody. Glad to have anybody here who's listening. And excited to be here and talk about some opportunities for players to try some new stuff, and DMs certainly to empower their players as well.
Absolutely. Just really excited to talk more. I mean, one of the best parts in Dungeons and Dragons, in my opinion, is building characters. I got into Dungeons and Dragons after I got into Skyrim, and I created player after player after player after player, and so in Dungeons and Dragons, it's hard for me not to want to do and at least speculate on what could be. So I'm really excited to jump into this. So really, off the top, supernatural gifts are something that are given to us specifically in Theros. Most heroes of Theros have some kind of supernatural aid to help them achieve their goals. Often this aid comes from the gods, but some heroes might find their support from other beings, such as Sphinx, like Madomai, who we will come to know very well in the coming months, an oracle like Atris or Kaidel. Kaidel, the Oracle of Krufix, who is known in Magic the Gathering, or a repository of mystical knowledge. Some heroes are born with supernatural power or born as a result of supernatural events. A character in Theros begins with one supernatural gift chosen from this in this section. Work with the DM to decide where your character's gift came from. Is it tied to the god you serve? Was it the result of a fateful encounter with a sphinx or an oracle? Does it indicate the nature of your birth? Each gift's description also includes a table to spark your imagination. Anyways, we're going to continue on. The first options that it really gives you, though, here, Zane, is heroic feats. It doesn't actually give you any of the 9 that are the meat and potatoes. It kind of gives you just an open table to DM to let you take any feat you want at level 1. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, obviously there's, from an optimization standpoint, there's a ton of fun stuff that you can do here. Taking Variant Human at 1, you're talking about the possibility of having 2 feats right there at level 1. Obviously, I got to point that out. Sorry to all the DMs out there. I also, I look at these all, like I said at the beginning, this has opportunities to make extra powerful, PCs to kind of reinvent, what we've been doing for a long time as player characters. It just provides another layer, an opportunity to kind of enrich the players and just make them as powerful as you can. So it's just, I love seeing it all. I mean, and they give you so many options here, obviously, for different ways that, standing feats can be applied. But, I mean, for Theros as a setting, I can't take my eyes off of these initial, offerings that they provide us with.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into it. I think that's really the meat and potatoes of what we want to get into. But as you said, I mean, the ideas that you can create and the optimized builds that you can get to at such an early level with this heroic feats path is pretty ridiculous to think about.
And this is a good place. I would also like to kind of just interject here and kind of think about what we know, Wizards have talked about doing in the future with D&D 1, and they're talking about, having feats as part of backgrounds and things of that nature. You're going to feel a lot of those kind of, mechanics are already in place in Theros. So as a DM who's looking forward to those sorts of changes, it's a really cool chance to kind of think about how players are just going to get stronger. So you've got to get smarter and adapt as well.
Yeah, that's some really good insight. I think that out of the changes that we've seen so far from Wizards when looking at this play supplement, I do think that's one of the things that's going to stick. I think that backgrounds are going to give you feats. I think that it's fun. It's fun. So moving on to Anvil Rot, though, the first one, which One of the ones that I think at first doesn't like have all the bells and whistles as some of the other ones, but it's just flat good. You were forged in the fires of Perforos' forge. Your appearance bears a metallic sheen of visible joints. I mean, I have a player character in one of my campaigns currently who is a living suit of armor, Anvil Rot. He is and this is where another topic of conversation that'll be fun is in the Theros that I run. The only way to bring in non-native races is through either Anvil Rot or Nyxborn as your supernatural gift. Otherwise, you have to stay with human, satyr, centaur, triton, minotaur, and leonin. What are your thoughts on Anvil Rot? Hearing that, a lot to unpack with just that thought. But getting into it, what do you think?
Sure. I mean, when you break it down, I mean, start with constructed resilience. You were just created, by Perforos in this situation, or possibly a relative of his, someone created in his image, or by his imagination. So you were created to have this fortitude, gives you advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and resistance to poison damage. You don't need to eat, drink, or breathe. You're immune to disease. And you don't need to sleep, and magic can't put you to sleep. The secondary part is when you take a long rest, you must spend at least 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state rather than sleeping. In this state, you appear inert, but it doesn't render you unconscious, and you can see and hear as normal. So this has a lot of fun stuff. I mean, to me, it immediately lends itself to kind of thinking about elves and half-elves in
the Century's Rest.
D&D outside of. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It also has great stuff for Warforged, but I can see a caster as well. I mean, it looks like it's built for a melee character, but this could be awesome for a caster as well. Without a doubt, you don't have to worry as much about losing concentration by sleep magic, things. Of that nature.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really cool. It's just a great. I mean, I think at first blush, maybe it doesn't read that strong, but I think it's one of the stronger offerings right off of the bat.
A thought I had today, before the nerf, forgive me, maybe but the new race from Spelljammer, the flying monkey. When I thought of like a wind up flying monkey earlier this week of an Anvil Rot, one of those, which would have been pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, again, I think in my short I talked about, I imagine some Loxodons. I mean, so when we talk about this, now that we've kind of gone through the abilities and what do you, where do you put this? You talked about a caster. I do think, immune to disease, these are all just kind of anything, you put it on anything and you'd like it. Right? I mean, it's nothing.
I think it is I think it's an easy way to open the world to non-native races if you're a DM who prefers, that sort of immersion. And I think it does present that as a really cool opportunity to get those, to certainly at least upsell Anvil Rot as a supernatural gift, but also certainly to try to keep Theros as, true to what you believe it is as a DM.
Yeah, and that's to each their own. I think that in the coming months, what you'll see from this channel is more of us talking about those options as a DM and as players, and whether you're in Theros or not. One of the things that our goals is to provide people that don't know about Theros ways to learn about it, ways to come into it. And so, a lot more to come on that, but really excited about that. And I think to go back to the segue that I had at the beginning. The Anvil Rot that I have in my campaign, he's a fire genasi, so he sees infinitely with his red, and the only way that would ever exist on Theros is because of him. And I think that's one of the fantasies that I really enjoy in all of this is each of you players that come in leave your mark. And these supernatural gifts aren't just a dime a dozen type of thing. They're based in the world, which is a lot of fun.
Yeah, so this is a question that I've kind of thought about as I've prepped for this lightly. Are there just non-heroes running around with supernatural gifts in Theros? Do you think? Are there like commoners with these things that are in them that are never unlocked? I mean, is that really just kind of like a hero origin story in and of itself? Or do you think that like just the common folk of Theros are just more magical or more oriented toward a life of adventure?
I think it's just a high magic world, period, and then to start. But I do think that beyond that, I just think about seizing destiny and or kind of chasing it. I'm sure, at least I'd like to believe, the little farm boy that thinks he's able to take down Pelucranos could one day do it if he was that determined. I think Klothys would look down on him and grant him that. But who's to say?
So good way into our second.
With the heroic destiny, yes, couldn't do it better. So, great deeds lie in your future, and it will take extraordinary effort to kill you before you accomplish those deeds. Choose a role in a random destiny using the heroic destiny table. But go ahead, Zane, if you wanna run down these, which are very strong.
Yes, they are. Advantage on death saving throws, defy death. That's a massive one. If you want survivability, look no further, especially for a front liner. Really for anybody if you're thinking about playing a blade singer or something like that. And then hard to kill. When you're reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you have finished a long rest.
A lot's on
survivability written all over it.
And another one that doesn't stick out to anybody, like any one class. I mean, it's not one that I'm like, I mean, it's frontliner. I mean, I wouldn't, but you could be a fighter, paladin, barbarian,
cleric.
I mean, because at the end of the day, I've seen plenty of times in my campaigns. I mean, the examples are endless of that hard to kill, where you are struck by a blow that puts you down, that would put you down. You're rolling death saves, and instead of that, you are up. You can finish your turn if you're in the middle of your turn. They've already used their reaction. Whatever creature that just hit you. I mean,
right. Yeah. No. I mean, yeah.
And you can then you do with the rest you can do to.
You use it with an athlete background, which is something we'll get into here as well. You get that extra movement with a leap or something like that, like getting yourself out of a really hairy situation. Heroic destiny is cool. I mean, it's very cool. It's not something that I could really see myself picking, but for somebody who was looking to really be in there, swinging the big
anybody
stick,
that knows that they're going to take a hit. I mean, and unfortunately, it in my opinion casts a shadow on one of the other ones that we'll get to later on this list. But we will save that for later. The next one is Iconoclass, which is talk about a flavorful one. No one can deny the reality of the gods of Theros, whose presence and deeds are visible in the night sky and sometimes directly in the mortal realm. But some people refute the idea that the gods are worthy of reverence. Such iconoclasts are common among Leonin, but members of any culture can adopt these supernatural gifts. The Iconoclast characteristics table presents suggestions of why you might have become one. But your denial of the gods gives you supernatural powers to resist their influence in the world. You gain the following traits. So I'm going to before I even get to that, it's interesting that this is another example, in my opinion, of wizards leaning into, if you believe it is in Theros. Your denial of the gods your denial of them gives you supernatural power to resist their influence in the world.
And leaning into archetypes, because I mean, how many of the other supernatural gifts are going to mention a specific race? I would agree.
Yeah,
so as you're going through, if you're following along at home, I mean, Iconoclast, as Drew kind of goes down the different level Iconoclast traits, just keep in mind that this is going to mirror more what you see in the God section, which we're not going to go over tonight, but this kind of will give you a sense of how those mechanics work, and
The
as
piety
you advance
system.
through level,
Yeah.
the piety system works with the gods. So
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, so the Enlightened Protection is the first thing that you get. You can cast Protection from Evil and Good with this trait, targeting only yourself and requiring no material components. Once you do so, you can't cast again until you finish a long rest. And then Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for this trait. So just an opportunity to nullify some sort of celestial influence in a situation. I can think of a couple of different ways that would come in handy. What comes to mind for you?
Well, I mean, of course, it's tailor made for Theros. You're going to be interacting, eventually you're going to be interacting with gods on some level. You're going to be interacting with, potentially God's children, other deities, other really high power, beings out there. So being in a situation where you can tell a god to just mind their own business, that might be handy or damning down the line, but it certainly would not lack in drama for your table, that's for sure.
Certainly not.
Yeah.
I agree. The next one is Reject the Gods. So this is where we're getting into exactly what Zane was kind of talking about, which is instead of the piety system that you would gain with a certain god, which they get into in the god section, it gives you your own that is based on your level rather than any sort of other measurable that the DM is keeping track of. Iconoclast. So at 5th level, Iconoclast Hero, you get this trait. You can cast Dispel Magic with this trait. Once you do so, you can't cast it this way until you finish a long rest. So just another example of where magic in and of itself is based. So much of it is based through the gods, I think, is what we're kind of getting a sense of here.
I think it also lends itself really well to the idea that these iconoclasts are certainly wary of the gods, at the very least, if not downright suspicious or hateful. Right? It's got this really cool thing, and as we work through them, every single one of the traits gives anybody who takes this supernatural gift the opportunity to find the gods out, to really call them on their BS. And if there's one thing we know about classic Greek and Roman literature that has gone on, obviously, to inspire Theros, is that the gods are up to no good no matter what they're doing. At least it seems to me. So this just empowers your party, in those moments where perhaps it's not any of the party's gods who's been presented to the party, and the iconoclast gets the opportunity to shine.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those things that's interesting. Having a couple of iconoclasts in some of my parties, they can ruffle some of the feathers of those heroes and the gods. So it's interesting to see, like you said, that drama that this kind of instills, and that the antagonism and the antagonistic nature between those iconoclasts and the gods and their champions. So the next, at 11th level, Iconoclass Paragon, you can cast Dispel Evil and Good with this trait, requiring no material components. Once you do so, you can't cast this again until you finish a long rest. In addition, when you cast Dispel Magic using your Iconoclast Hero trait, you cast it as a 4th level spell. I mean, just more, it really is. This seems something that you would do. Go ahead. Please.
Well, no, it's really strong. It gives you just the higher upcast for that Dispel Magic. It's just it just kind of continues to buff that whole idea that you're really here to stand up for the real intangible things in the world, as opposed to what the gods are trying to present you with.
Agreed. Yeah, no, I think, I mean, that's where we're seeing here is this really leaning into that, and even more so. Iconoclast Archetype, at 17th level, you can cast Anti-Magic Field with this trait, again, requiring no material components. Once you do so, you can't cast until another long rest, and then it increases you again from 4th level to 5th level with that Dispel Magic. So just more of that. I really think that the Iconoclast, this seems to me, would be very powerful for some for classes that don't have access to magic at all. Because it's all innate spellcasting. Wisdom, Barbarians. This is a great Iconoclass Barbarians seem, in my opinion, one of the better ways to go. Just because, or a Druid. I mean, I guess, but again, Barbarian, you're not giving up anything. And you're just getting spells. So
a lot of like other mid, second and third tier play stuff requires the ability to cast at least one spell, so this definitely opens up some fun stuff for those non-casting classes.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of flavor. Pretty specific in the world, like you said earlier. I mean, we definitely see this predominantly in Leonin culture, but there's a lot. I just don't see a lot of people living in Akros or living in Miletus and like overtly Iconoclast as much as Oreskos. But I'm sure that your PC, if you have a Triton Iconoclast, now that would be scary. You're swimming in her waters every day.
Yeah, that might not be the one for me.
I don't know if I like that one, but hey, to each their own. The next one though, Inscrutable. This is a fun one, I think, and this one is one where paired with some just outright unfun. You can go ahead and start us off though there if you want.
All right, so Inscrutable. Like a sphinx, you have a mind like a maze, impenetrable to mortal scrutiny. This might be a gift or training from an actual sphinx, the blessing or curse of a god, or an inexplicable talent. The inscrutable characteristics table suggests options for what makes you inscrutable. Additionally, you gain the following trait. Psychic Shield, you have resistance to psychic damage, and Sphinx's Shroud. You are immune to any effect that allows other creatures to sense your emotions or read your thoughts. Wisdom or insight checks made to ascertain your intentions or sincerity have disadvantage.
Instantly you know where I'm going to go. Is any sort of silver-tongued individual, this thing is just downright unfair.
Filthy.
And tonight we're just going over the supernatural gifts, but when we can go over the subclasses of this, and they literally just tie a bow for people to just be able to swindle the world in this supplement. In this world, between Inscrutable and oh my gosh, the College of Eloquence. You can just lie for days and never. It's funny.
Yeah, you really have to come up against somebody who. What is it? What do you need? You need to come up against somebody who really isn't going to listen to even.
It's not going to listen. That's the only way. Literally is like they see you and they can't. I'm not listening to you.
Right. They're like, this is somebody. Yeah, they've seen you from miles away. They're attacking you with longbows from 900 feet before you ever get close enough to.
Can't hear you whistle without you just falling all over yourself, wanting to hear them. Oh my gosh, it's fun. I think that this is one of those where you look at this and it's easy to be like, oh, that's not strong, but. It depends on how much combat. A character with this could get struck by a couple quills from a manticore and just be dead, and this does nothing. This did nothing for them. So it just depends on where you are and what you're doing. But this, I think that there are just cases where this thing is just too good. It's hilarious.
Yes, of course. And you would hate to be. Traveling as the next supernatural gift with somebody who is inscrutable, wouldn't you? If you were going around all the time as a lifelong companion to a
I love it. Yes,
I didn't even want that person that I would want. Okay, so this inscrutable. I'm just imagining that it's maybe a charisma caster. We imagine that it's a warlock for these. I'm just imagining somebody just going around and doing whatever they want for their supposed patron or otherwise. Warlocks are kind of a funny kind of a funny thing in Theros. Have
Well,
you
yeah.
can can you kind of tell me a little bit how you feel about how those patrons work in
Yeah,
combination with the gods?
yeah, that's. I mean, so I'm going to time us on this offshoot, but I will. I like this. So,
Sorry.
no, it's good. But I think that when you look at patronage, I think you can do the celestial, but I think that there's a couple different of those warlock subclasses that you can do that still fit any of them. I think that the Fae touched one, or it could still be Erebos, I think, or any of those that kind of get big. There's a couple different of the subs that I think. I really think Clothis. I could see a blade. Excuse me, I'm drawing blanks.
Yeah, Hexblade.
A Hexblade.
Yeah, Hexblade.
And so I think that there's a couple different ways. I just think that you look at it as a devotion. You look at it just the same way as Celestial. It's not. I mean, this makes me go off on another idea, which is where I saw. No. It's fine. We're at 1 minute. We're good. Where there's an argument to be made that warlocks are more intelligence than charisma casters. I've seen videos on that. So there's a whole interesting thing about how does patronage versus prayer and devotion, those two things, and that tie to the god, because I think that a warlock, there's a pact there is an agreement, whereas it's interesting to think about. Okay. But you segued us right into Lifelong Companion, and whoop, you just grabbed it by the reins and ripped us back over it.
Yep. Like Xenagos with the Strands of Destiny, just pulling himself up into Nyx.
And in the underworld, Clothis is rolling over, thinking that Satyr King is able to use her threads to do anything. Behind many heroes is another hero whose greatness comes from the support and love they offer. Haktos had his beloved Perenise. Renata was accompanied by her servant Carados, and Siona sailed with her devoted crew. Like these partners, you are great and make others great. Consider the companion relationships table when determining your legendary connection. Any relationship with another player's character requires the player's consent, of course. Additionally, you gain the following traits. So Lifelong Companion, what we'll talk about is kind of two different ways to present this, in my opinion. One of them is how it's written. You are the number two. You're the bad guy, right? You're the shield bearer of somebody else. The other way, which we'll get to after, is you have a companion. And that's using other supplements. MCDM has retainers, and there's other ways that you can just have a companion, somebody that comes with you, and so there's other ways to go about it. That's not as written. We'll start with this and the Boon Aura, which is the first ability that you get, which is your allies within 5 feet of you have advantage on saving throws against being frightened or charmed, provided you are incapacitated. What do you think about that off the bat, Zane?
I mean, so it rings to me. I can't remember if it's the level 6 or I think it's the level 7 Bard, just class feature, which is allows you to. I'm sorry, my mind is not going to pick up what it is right now, but I know that it keeps you from being frightened or charmed.
Yeah, no, there's like you said, it's like if you have a
so that rings true to that. But the Lifelong Companion thing, I mean, I don't know. I think that this is something that could almost, if you had the right party, that you could weave in such a way that the entire party had it together if they grew up together. I don't know. I mean, I think it's definitely got. I think it's got some cool applications. I don't think. It's also not supernatural. I just don't, I don't know if it belongs in this section or not at all.
That's not.
I think it's got some cool applications, but, to me, it's definitely not something that I would pick. I think it would be really cool if you had somebody who rolled garbage stats and knew that they, loved a party member and knew that they wanted to see that party member, continue on for sure to the end of the story. I could see Lifelong Companion being really useful, in the middle of a dungeon dive, if you're not really sure what to introduce, like somebody who like showed up from your hometown to help out. I could see that being pretty cool. So there are
Interesting.
applications for it for sure. You can imagine, right, being in the middle of like,
Well, yeah, if somebody
you
goes
know,
down, you can have it. I've been searching for you since you left. Convenient.
exactly.
I mean, yeah, it's a hand wave, but it
Your
makes sense.
PC gets obliterated.
Yeah,
PC gets
somebody
obliterated.
messes up, and it's like, hey, buddy, you're gonna be my guy now. Hey, we got a comment from Gamby. Eloquence Bard is my favorite. Yeah, Eloquence Bard is very powerful. We should talk about that on its own, Zane. Maybe we should do the subclasses.
We can mark it down as a separate conversation. But I could have an hour-long conversation about just how to build different bards for Theros, but yeah, that's again another conversation. I mean, you get one last thing. You could think of three in my mind. Three really powerful, really fun bards. Anyways, but that's another.
When a creature you can see within 5 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to cause the attack to hit you instead, once per long rest. Again, it's you're seen in 5 feet from your buddy. You are a shield and board, I imagine, or you're, I just don't imagine. I imagine maybe you're some sort of utility beef. A cleric. I mean, a Twilight cleric, or maybe like, yeah, I think a Twilight cleric. I could see.
What about an ancestral guardian barbarian? That kind of plays in really nicely. Like you come from a family line of serving this other person's family. And as you fly into a raid,
the action economy is bad there, right?
The action economy is garbage with the reactions, but I mean, you can
because you're using your reaction's gone. Yeah. I mean, this is something that you could use outside of rage. That's kind of consistent with your kit.
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. It has nothing to do with, but it's only you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Like I said,
it's just a long rest. If it was a short rest, I'd even like it more. That just seems a little weak.
I think it could be proficiency bonus times a day or something like that. I mean,
especially it's just like
this is one where you could take the bones and work with the amenable DM and find something really, really powerful and good and fun and enriching, but I think that it's lacking as it's
well, and that takes us into the other way. I had a player that came to me with Lifelong Companion, and I kind of pitched like, well, hey, we've got these retainers, and again, that's MCDM. If you don't know about them, that's Matt Colville's company, but they have some amazing products, supplements to kind of enhance your game, and I love using them. One of them is like a retainer, which is like a tag-along, and they kind of introduce those in Tosh's as well. But I think that you can really use this as maybe you have a bring along, and you kind of lose some of this, and I think that's what we did is we kind of dropped this, and then they brought it into their backstory, and I thought it was fun, but just an idea for you DMs out there, if you look at this and somebody who kind of wants to do it, but they don't really like these options, that might be a way to go to. Ooh, okay, Zane, the next one, man.
Yep, this one's been lurking. This is
a fun one.
Waiting here for us, hasn't it?
Happily. It has. It has.
Like a little treat.
It is.
The way through.
Nyxborn. Born from the minds of the gods. The creatures that populate the gods' realm are called Nyxborn. So in that first sentence there, you are born from the minds of gods. Dig into that for me.
Right. I mean, so who really knows what the reach or the grasp of a Theros god is, right? Where do they belong? What can they see? What can they begin to imagine? So right here, I think is a nice way to tie in the fact that this is the second and excellent supernatural gift for tying in non-native races to Theros. It provides the opportunity for anything that your imagination can come up with, even if you're feeling even more rule bending than just like the standard array of races and classes available to you as a DM or as a player. Nyxborn gives you something that's going to stand out, on paper, It's going to stand out in the world of Theros. Like, Nyxborn is noticed. Like, everybody notices things that are made of Nyx, but they are just a part of the daily life. So these characters are going to feel extremely vivid. They're going to feel attached to the world immediately, even if you did pull them in from another plane, or from another storyline that you may have, be playing with your table or whatever. I know I do that. I know I love knowing that my players or our PCs can cross tables and through the metaverse, so or through the multiverse. So Nyxborn, they're tight. I mean, they're tight. You imagine they're just literally walking around cloaked and veiled in constantly sparkling stars, and like Aurora Borealis is kind of like, I mean, they're beautiful and amazing. I love them. I think they're the coolest.
Yeah, no, Gamby just said Nyxborn is a fun way to bring in ASMR, which I agree. No, I mean anything. I think that I had a Yunkai, right? Or what are the Yuan T, Nyxborn, a Goliath Nyxborn I've had. That was a Keranos Thunder Barbarian, man. Talk about just leading into it. But I mean, Nyxborn, again, we haven't even gotten into what the abilities that they get, which are really good. But the reality is, Nyxborn, for a little bit of background for those who don't know, I mean, Nyxborn, they live in Nyx, like they said, but they come out through Nykthos, this area, the far east of Theros on the map. I think I can bring that up for us here. And they plague the people, or the Leonin of Oreskos. So they hate Nyxborn as a culturally, typically. A lot of them are either fearful or hateful of Nyxborn. And there were, during the times of the Silence, a huge increase of attacks of Nyxborn. So there, depending on where you are in the timeline with your DM, or depending on, but there might be people that just outright, is if they were to see the flick of Nyx on the skin of one of your PCs, might erupt into anger and accusations, depending on their past interactions with them, which brings in a lot of cool RP opportunities too.
Yeah. So the first thing that you gain as a Nyxborn, the first trait is called Cloak of Stars. And as an action, you wrap yourself in a starry cloak, appearing like a silhouette formed of the night sky. When you do, attack rolls have disadvantage against you. This cloak lasts for 1 minute until you doff it, no action required, or until you die. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. I mean, that's basically, for 1 minute every day, you get a very rare magic item. In a displacer's, in a Cloak of Displacement, it's, at level 1, it's extraordinarily strong. It's extraordinarily strong. And then we'll move on to the second trait, Nyxborn Resistance. Please. You have resistance to necrotic and radiant damage.
I mean,
you want to go optimal. Yeah, I mean, there it is.
Yeah, it's hard to, I mean, again, this is where I think that, depending on where they are in the plane, depending on what city they're in, as a DM, keep in mind that you can, there are faults to all these things, and you should be able to have that happen, and your players should, not in a hateful way by any stretch, but you understand what I'm saying, is like, these are things that... World. Yes.
And you have to react realistically as the world, as a DM, and sometimes that's going to put your players in an uncomfortable position. And it does present an opportunity to exhaust resources and to explore conversations that maybe people don't typically expect to have. At the D&D table too. That's all about what you're comfortable with and what your table's comfort level is, but we certainly have conversations of all that run the gamut. So
and just evocative, fun, and enthralling gameplay and role play. So I mean, to go back to Cloak of Stars really quickly, because I just think, the first thing off the bat is any barbarian that has this, you turn this on as your action and you rage, and then you from then on can reckless attack and with impunity for a minute.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it's you're gonna spend your whole first turn raging, and then Cloak of Stars.
Yeah. Which is a beautiful turn. I mean, blow it up. Tell us how that looks. Tell me how that looks. Is all I gotta say.
I mean, it depends on who I am. I mean, if I'm an angry barbarian, probably flying into a rage, maybe even like ripping it off of me,
oh my gosh,
Hogan-esque, like ripping
your skin
off of my chest,
somehow
like
the Knicks.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Into a raid. Yeah, I mean, hey, who knows what might happen in Theros? I mean,
take it and run with it, everybody. That's some good stuff right there. Absolutely, and again, just 2 resistances is good. That's just good.
Yeah,
I mean,
you know, it is.
So, and you get some quirks. You get some.
Future. I see something strong coming up too here.
Oh yeah, this next one, and this is one again. Like so, I told Zane, I'm not sure if he said it yet in the stream, but we're gonna give a little bit of our tiers, and we'll run down how we rank them, and Oracle is one of those, and that is so dependent on your DM. It's gonna really come down to how much the gods are involved, and how much of a relationship in you've been able to build. But there's a lot to unpack here.
Sure.
So go ahead, and I mean, I think that we can run through the top real quick, and then we'll start going into all the abilities that they have.
Yeah. So I mean, the whole thing about oracles, right? And I'll just give the Reader's Digest version. The whole deal is that you hear God speak, you can speak Celestial. Read and write it as well. That's part of Ears of the Oracle. That's the first trait. So you're constantly listening, you're constantly engaged, and you can really speak to any of the gods. They can be devoted to one god, but they'll also kind of spread it around sometimes, for communication. And then Oracle's Insight is the second. Gods give you flashes of insight that help you bring your efforts to fruition. When you make an ability check, you can roll a d10 and add the number to the check. It's like an affordable instantaneous bardic inspiration, and you have to wait until after you roll the d20 before you decide to roll the d10, but you must tell the DM, you must decide before the DM says whether the roll succeeds or fails. It's good. It's a good way to splash in some extra dice on a low save or a d20 roll. And then they've got a similar breakdown to what you have for piety in the gods. So
So just like
go ahead.
Yeah, just like the Iconoclass, this one also kind of replaces any sort of piety system that you have with Oracle piety. So, like you said, we went over here's Oracle, and you made a good point where as an Oracle. In things that I've read, if you go read the Godsend books, or if you think about the idea of being bombarded as a youth by extraterrestrial languages and being able to during the day look up at Nyx, and the light blue sky is not necessarily as opaque, and you can see the gods moving around Nyx. And a lot of them are perceived as almost like they have some sort of learning disability until they are able to kind of comprehend and put those things that they're hearing in the different places. It's really interesting to think about and put yourself into.
Yeah, I mean they're incredibly powerful. Like we've talked about, in the right hands. If you're a dungeon crawling party, Oracle's probably not going to be something that anybody's necessarily going to gravitate towards, unless it's a dungeon that's completely controlled by gods, and I guess that is the only kind of dungeon that there really is in Theros, probably. So, but the reality is, I mean, once you get into these different levels of the piety, you get a casting of augury, you get a casting of divination, and you get a casting of commune as your +3, +10, and +25 piety oracle traits, respectively. And if you're given the opportunity to converse with the gods, and you've got a DM who's going to have a lot of role play opportunities. You can be incredibly influential in the world with with somebody playing an oracle, for sure.
And I just think that, like you said, at level 3 or at piety 3 you get augury, like you said, piety 10 divination, piety 25 commune. Going down, and then at 25 again you get a +2, and that's all the piety scores. But we have other ways that I'm sure that you and I are going to discuss on later episodes of ways to really show how powerful oracles are, and really how it's not about their power in themselves, but how they can connect your party to the gods, and how they can win favor for the party. I just think that, like you said, it's really cool.
Well, I think we can speak to it from our point of view now that we're kind of out of it. I mean, if you have a player at the table who you have a lot of experience with, or if you're a player at a table with a DM who you have a lot of experience with, and you want to try kind of a deeper storytelling, more connection to the gods, kind of more culture and lore, which is what we're here to talk about in the long run from a Theros standpoint. If you have that kind of relationship with your DM or with a player, it's a really good opportunity to really grab a hold of that collaborative storytelling that D&D is all about, because these are the characters who can almost break that fourth wall and speak directly to the DM, or at least allow the DM to speak directly to the party, which is a cool relationship.
Yeah, having that conversation. Think about having that conversation with the DM. Hey, man, we really don't want to. We appreciate you've been working on this storyline. But can we go this other way? You don't have to have that awkward conversation anymore. You can have your player do it for you. You can have your player call up the gods and say, "Hey, man, what the hell do you want us to be doing right now?" So, too funny. I agree. It's just. Definitely talk to your DM. I would encourage it. I love having oracles. They're a lot of fun. Staying in that vein of piety and pious. The next one is pious. You're born with a particular connection to a deity, or maybe there was something in your youth that made them fond of you. You've been winning favor with your god since then. Consult the pious quirks. We can look below. The first ability that you get is Pious Protection. If you fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it, and you must use the new roll. You can use this once per long rest. The next one is Religious Study. You have advantage on intelligence religion checks pertaining to that god, not to all gods. And then, the last one is Starting Piety. You begin with 3, and so just for those who might not know, and we can go through that piety stuff, and I do have a video on the gods that's very old, but you can go peruse it, and you'll learn. You'll get that first perk that is given to us from them, and that's where, again, it tells you in the piety system, typically you can bank on 1 per session. In my games, I'm sure that there are people that wish they've been doing math and they haven't gotten that. I think that there's also sometimes you don't do it, or you go back. And, also I would encourage DMs to know, in Theros, piety, you already have the supernatural gifts. Your characters are stronger in Theros, period. I just have to say that here, I guess, for some whatever reason. As pious is actually one of the weaker supernatural gifts that we'll get to this evening. But what do you think on this, Zane? I mean, where do you see it, and where do you think it stacks up?
Yeah, this is another one that feels to me like it's something that's just kind of coming along with having any sort of decent setup session with your DM. I mean, the starting piety, I find it hard to believe that if you're coming into a level 3 campaign, that your character doesn't already have 3 piety. Maybe not starting at level 3, that's fine. Fail a saving throw, you can re-roll it. Religious Study, I mean, this is another one that almost feels like it's begging to be rolled into Oracle.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is where this is where I think that a good way that you could do this is maybe an item, man. Well, yeah, this is where I think this is one where I know that I have a pious character, and I think that how I really made them, because I look at this and as a DM, and I look at how the other players that I look at, and I do their session 0.5s, their one-on-ones with them, and I try to send them off by their god, and Pious just like, this isn't enough. And so I think that, if you're looking at this and someone will do that, maybe there's an artifact, whether you can find it and you can nerf it, the one that already exists, or, I really like creating and maybe it scales with you, with your piety. I think that's a really cool, I love the idea that your weapon also grows with you, and I think that the piety system with your artifacts is a really good way for you to control its power as your player levels.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. Unscarred, which is the last on our list. It is gone by so fast. Unscarred, like the great hero Haktos, you are resistant to physical harm. Use the Unscarred origin table, yada yada. Unscarred resilience is what you get. When you take damage, you can use your reaction to roll a d12. Add your Constitution modifier to the number rolled and reduce the damage by that total. And you can do this once per short and long rest. What do you think?
I think it's got some really strong early game implications. I also think that it has some really strong implications if you partnered it with something like we talked about from Lifelong Companion. You really find a lot of ways to spread the damage around in Theros, at least just kind of at first blush on a couple of these. It's strong. I mean, early game. I mean, especially when you're getting down into those, low 2-digit and single-digit health situations, and you've got, you've got something like that in your back pocket. Stick around for one more round or even one more turn. It could be a big difference maker. So I think that there's some. If you know your triggers and you're paying attention, it can be very strong.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's unfortunately that this is the one I kind of alluded to when I talked about Heroic Destiny. I just think it's overshadowed by it. I just think that Unscarred, it's just not enough. D12 plus 5, like, I mean, if you're like the best you're gonna get. So I mean, it's not bad. It's just not one that really gets. I love the flavor. I mean, I swallowed a magic stone that fell from Nyx, or I was bathed in Hydra's blood. So it's very much my Achilles was dipped by his heels, and Ajax was wrapped in the tiger mane the lion mane of the one that Hercules wore for all. That's the deep one for those who don't know. Ajax is great grandson of Hercules, and he was wrapped in that lion pelt, and that's how he was so strong during the Trojan War. There you go. Well, that is the end of all these supernatural gifts. I mean, so as we go down, we have Anvil Rot, Heroic Destiny, Iconoclass, Inscrutable, Lifelong Companion, Nyxborn, Oracle, Pious, and Unscarred. So Zane, we're gonna just go down. What is the best one? Or you and I said we had 3. You and I said that there were these 3 at the very beginning.
I've now reconsidered my 3.
Oh, all right.
I want to make the considerations because I'm a big benefit of the doubt guy. So let me give. I think that there is one that stands out amongst all of the rest. Especially with the subclass presented in the book, College of Eloquence. Inscrutable is the strongest, and it is game-breakingly strong. I think if you in the hands of the right player, I think it's the strongest of all of them. And a DM and other players who are really there for the storytelling. If you get somebody who wants to be that guy at your table, that's a different story. I think Nyxborn and Anvil Rot are both really strong because of the opportunity they provide you from a storytelling standpoint, from RP, as well as bringing in other races. And then, of course, Oracles are also in that category. I think Anvil Rot, Nyxborn, and Oracle all belong in the second tier. The rest can kind of gather themselves.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that you just didn't. I guess you're sleeping on Heroic Destiny for me. I guess I'm agreeing with a lot of what you're saying.
Go ahead.
No, I just think that again, I look at. It's just good. I mean, yeah. I mean, when I look at S tier, if I was looking at S tier, I guess I think that if you're at the right table, Oracle could be S tier. If you're in the right campaign, Inscrutable can be S tier. Though that's where I think I look at the ones that like I could say that they are, but it has to be a situation.
Right.
So those are the only two that I could really see that are like truly game breaking. Like you could flex this so hard in certain situations that your DM will squirm and like you'll be like and will be trying to figure out a way to freaking corral you powerful heroes. So I mean that's just my truth because that's not going to happen with an Anvil Rot or a Nyxborn, although those are A tier. Like so that's where I think that those two and Heroic Destiny are the next tier for me.
Yes.
So
I did sleep on Heroic Destiny. I mean it's just flat out good.
I mean, you have advantage on death saving throws, period, is such a strong ability. Every time you're down, you
think about it. You have to get downed first.
Which you already have an advantage of getting, like, it's so hard. If you don't want to die, it is a very strong. That's why I would definitely have an A.
Thanks so much, dude. Like, this has been super fun. I'm looking forward to doing this again. I know we don't get to talk as often as we used to, but hopefully people out here trying to listen to us yammer on for, I don't know, probably close to an hour now. About
58 minutes. No, we're wrapping a tight 1 hour. I mean, I think that I hopefully this is well received. I really enjoyed it, Zane. Thank you for taking the time to be here.
Of course.
I'm really excited for more of this to come in. And I guess we'll leave, for those that have stayed or those that are going to see, we'll tease a little bit of the art. I kind of talked a little bit, but we got a big project coming. We got big stuff coming for Theros. This map that you're seeing right here, I'm about to put it on the big screen. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the art and the beauty that we are bringing and the depth of content that is going to be coming to Theros from this channel and from Drew and Dragon. So please, hit that like, hit that subscribe. And again, a big thanks to Zane for joining me. He's definitely going to be here back more. Thanks again, Zane, for taking the time, man, and kind of digging through these awesome supernatural gifts.
Happy to be here. Just happy to and really excited. As people find you and if they want to chat about how cool Theros is and what's out there. I mean, I'm always interested in the chat. So thank you for having me, Drew.
Yeah, Discord channel is going to be on the way. I do have one that I think I'll be adding that. Look in the description. And if you want to come play in Theros, I currently have 2 tables that are opening. Next week, I would be looking to do session zeros. So you can go ahead and hit me. Find my stuff in the description. Again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this, and we hope you have a great night. Take care.